Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about not all of the news, but some of the critical news stories of the past week. As usual, there's always a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. But of course, as usual, let's go ahead and start with the cryptocurrency market update. As you can see here, Bitcoin is currently trading at $30,760, up at 1.81% over the last 7 days. It's still kind of ranging in that $30,000 range. Pretty much it's been like that for the last couple of weeks since the news of the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF application. When Bitcoin was trading at around 25,000, it made that leap up to around 30, and now it's been kind of hanging in that $30,000 range for the past couple of weeks. Ethereum is currently trading at $1,950, up 3.86% over the last 7 days. And as you can see here, the rest of the coins in the top 10, for the most part, has done pretty well, staying in the green, with Solana holding in the top 10 spot, going up over 16% over the last 7 days. So if we go to the Bitcoin chart, as I mentioned earlier, we saw that spike up after the BlackRock ETF news, and it went from around 25,000 on June 14th up to 30,000 in the past week. And then since then, it has ranged in that $30,000 range. But we did have a small dip under 30,000 this past Friday when we heard that the SEC claimed that the ETFs that were recently filed by many of the large asset managers was considered inadequate and that they needed more information, so they are able to refile, and we'll get into that in a moment. But once it dipped under 30,000, it bounced right back up into the $30,000 range. And as you can see here, we're at $30,761.90. So we also learned this week about Microstrategy, which is a software analytics company founded by Michael Saylor, who has been a well-known proponent of Bitcoin and has gone around the world speaking about Bitcoin and his belief that Bitcoin will be the new form of money, and his company is continuing to collect as many Bitcoins as possible. As you can see here, they bought over 12,000 Bitcoin, 12,333 to be exact, worth $347 million at the time of purchase. That brings their grand total to 152,333 Bitcoin, currently at an average price of approximately 29,000, and that total is approximately 4.52 billion right now at the current Bitcoin prices. And if we go to look at the MicroStrategy stock, their market cap is currently trading at about $4.4 billion. So technically, they're actually undervalued. So as a stock and someone who's looking into getting into Bitcoin exposure without actually having to buy Bitcoin, and a lot of people are looking at MicroStrategy as a way to do that because it's basically a Bitcoin proxy. If you look at this with the market cap being 4.4 billion and the current value of all their Bitcoin being at 4.52 billion, and this is not including just the business itself and the revenue that it brings each year as an analytics company, this is considered undervalued. So people are looking at MicroStrategy to see, once Bitcoin continues to go up in price, and if it does go back to its all-time highs, then MicroStrategy will probably follow along with it. So if, for example, Bitcoin goes from 30 to 60 at some point, then the micro cap of MicroStrategy would be approximately $9 billion. So there's a possibility that MicroStrategy has a lot of runway, considering that many are believing that after the Bitcoin halving happens next year, that Bitcoin could potentially be heading into the next bull run. So obviously time will tell in that regard, but there's a lot of investment managers. We always want to look at what the institutions are doing. What is the big money doing? What are whales doing? And as you can see here, because we don't have a lot of information with regards to cryptocurrencies and they're not fully regulated yet, and we haven't gotten clarity from the Securities Exchange Commission, a lot of institutions do see that MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin proxy that they can use on the stock exchange. And if you look at the top 10 owners of MicroStrategy, you have Vanguard, you have Fidelity, which we'll get to in a moment. They recently filed a spot Bitcoin ETF. BlackRock, of course, the largest asset manager in the world, they have a huge stake in MicroStrategy at over 5.5%. And then you also see Morgan Stanley, another large asset manager, and Invesco was another one of the investment firms that recently also filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF. So if you look to see what some of these larger institutions are doing, because of the fact that they currently do not have a lot of exposure to Bitcoin in the purest form, they're looking at a Bitcoin proxy like MicroStrategy. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And as we mentioned, Fidelity, they also applied for a spot ETF earlier this week, and they refiled paperwork given what the SEC has mentioned this past week on Friday regarding the applications being inadequate because they wanted more information about the subscription agreement that they would be having with whatever exchange that they're working with. And it seems like many of these spot ETFs include Coinbase. So Coinbase is going to be another company that we can look at and look at their stock to see how well they do, because they are intertwined with a lot of these asset managers that have filed for spot Bitcoin ETFs. So as you can see here, Fidelity refiled their paperwork on their spot Bitcoin ETF. The move comes roughly 2 weeks after BlackRock's submitted their paperwork, and it was rejected the first time that they applied in 2021. So they're now reapplying here in 2023 on the heels of the BlackRock spot ETF. BlackRock has a stellar record when it comes to applying for ETFs, and we've talked about that a little bit more in our last video, so please go and check that out if you didn't get a chance to check that over the past week. And so now we have Fidelity that has applied. They're refiling to give more information that the SEC has requested, and they can refile and their application, and then hopefully over the next, it'll probably be at least several months before we get an update with regards to any of these spot ETF applications. So as you can see here, the U.S. had deemed the spot Bitcoin ETF filings as inadequate. So they labeled many of those applications inadequate due to the fact that it was not sufficiently clear and comprehensive. And as I mentioned, they are looking to get some more information regarding the proposed surveillance sharing agreement, which is an agreement that will make sure to provide transparency for all of the trades that would be happening in relation to Bitcoin. So it's going to be very important because supposedly the SEC is supposed to protect us as investors. And so you want to have as much transparency as possible. Just like when you're trading equities, we get earnings from these public companies. We're able to follow what these public companies are doing and how well they're doing quarter to quarter. So we need to make sure that we also have that same type of transparency when it comes to a spot Bitcoin ETF. Another asset manager who is very well known in the innovation space is Cathie Wood and her ARK Invest team, and they are reportedly ahead of BlackRock in the race for a spot Bitcoin ETF as they had a previous application pending with the United States security regulators. As you can see here, ARK and 21 Shares filed their third application for a spot ETF, so they're hoping that third time is a charm. Their last one was filed in April, and they also will be including their surveillance sharing agreement, making it similar to BlackRock's filing. So as I mentioned, it's probably going to be some time before we actually find out from the SEC whether or not any of these spot ETFs are going to be accepted. But we're going to go here to the ARK Invest website, and as you can see, they invest in what they call disruptive innovation. They believe in investing in the future. They also believe in their founder, Cathie Wood, has mentioned that she believes in Bitcoin as a new form of money, and the blockchain technology will be something that is disruptive in many different industries. And she's also known for investing in Tesla very early, in Nvidia very early. So their team has done very well in terms of finding companies that are companies of the future. And now So we shall see how well they do in the future. You can go here to find out some more information here at arc-funds.com about their different ETFs, and they cover a whole range of companies with regards to innovation and future technology. So we're going to go and talk once again about Beats, or I should say once again about Aku, which is an NFT project that was founded by Micah Johnson, an artist who was inspired by a black boy who asked him if black boys can be astronauts, and he created the character Aku. And Aku has become fairly popular in the NFT space. He had a profile picture project called Akutars that has done fairly well. With the bear market, it has now pulled back a lot in terms of value, but they are continuing to collab with a lot of major brands. They've collaborated with Paper Planes, they've collaborated with Billionaire Boys Club, and now there was a recent announcement by Beats by Dre, which, if many of you do not know, is owned by Apple. So we already know that Apple has some connections with Bitcoin, as we had found out that the Bitcoin white paper was embedded in many of the MacBook computers. So Apple obviously is keeping their eye on what's going on with blockchain technology and Bitcoin. And you can see here Beats by Dre considers Aku a imaginative dreamer who loves listening to music while he creates. And so they're going to be coming out with a limited edition Aku branded Beats by Dre headphones. And as you can see here, Michael Johnson tweeted about the partnership and this coming to fruition. So as you can see, this is what the Beats by Dre Aku headphones are going to look like. I don't know any further information right now with regards to how many Beats by Dre headphones will be sold with this Aku logo and artwork. So we'll keep you posted on that. But we thought that was a really cool story. And this is just one of many major brands that are going into the Web3 space. As you can see here, some of the other big names include Oreo Cookies and DreamWorks. They're going to be launching a Trolls NFT collection. Saw, which is a very popular movie franchise, is also entering into the Web3 space. So we continue to get lots of news from a lot of major Web2 companies that are looking to get into the digital asset space and NFTs. We talked about Starbucks. We've talked about Nike. So it just goes on and on. Louis Vuitton. So even though the market as a whole is down bad, frankly, right now in this bear market, there's a lot of companies that are building, and this is the time when you want to learn about what's going on in the NFT space and the cryptocurrency space, because millionaires and billionaires are actually made in the bear market. So thank you so much for watching and listening. We appreciate you and your support. We look forward to continuing to bring you information with regards to what's happening in emerging markets, particularly in blockchain technology and the Web3 space. So in the meantime, take care of yourself. We look forward to connecting with you soon on the Networkchain. Bye-bye.